Hey all, it's Emily. I am shook by some of what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. Um, so I remember being that impressionable freshman college student. I actually was a sophomore when I got into the education program. So I tried psychology first, thinking I'd be a child counselor. Realized science and math are not my favorite topics, and there's a lot of it in psychology. My best friend ended up saying, "Hey, why don't you do education and teach kids?" Light bulb moment right there. And from that moment, all I ever wanted to do was be a teacher. So I remember being in the beginning, learning so much, getting my education and graduating without nearly enough content on dealing with behavior management or classroom management or restorative justice within the school system, restorative practices. Anyways, emotional regulation, social emotional learning, those things. Beside the point. But I saw an Instagram video a couple of days ago about this education student, an undergrad student, I believe, reading a piece of her textbook, her education textbook, to share just kind of the insanity of what's printed, because that's what it is. And then I also have a couple excerpts from my sister-in-law who's going back to school for education so she can teach elementary students. She has sent me little excerpts of what the textbooks are saying about what makes a good teacher a good teacher. And it's wild. So I have all my post-its around here to share this. So the person on TikTok shared this from a book that education students have to purchase or rent, and those costs have gone up insurmountably in the last even few years. Definitely in the last 10 to 15 years since I was in college. So here's what her book is telling her. In the early months of the school year, many new teachers experience depression and self-doubt, outbursts of crying, physical exhaustion, insomnia, crankiness, inability to control temper, and even fits of vomiting before going to school in the morning. The only one that I can see as understandable is, as a person who gets in my own head, self-doubt. Like, that's always there for me. That's one that I feel like many people deal with, and that's just natural no matter what profession you go into. Where it's like, oh my goodness, do I got this? But like in reality, yeah, you got this. The fact that this is in a textbook to be taught to future teachers, which we don't have enough of them, to be taught to future teachers that this is accepted as normal is abuse. This is so abusive. This is like saying to a domestic violence victim, yeah, you might vomit when your significant other comes home. You might cry all the time and be physically exhausted from the mental strain. You might have trouble controlling your emotions, deal with depression, a lot of crying. That sounds insane to say it to somebody who has been in a domestic violence situation. Equally insane to say to someone in education, like, oh yeah, it's just a part of the game, right? It's a part of the system. This is totally normal, and you shouldn't question it at all, because they put it in the book just to normalize it, like it's okay, when rather than take away the reasons that there might be depression, outbursts of crying, physical exhaustion, insomnia, the crankiness. Like, this is why teachers are leaving. This is why we're not getting teachers into the profession. And this is unacceptable. So that's the first one. And that was what sparked my need to share this. And these other ones, these other pieces are, I got them a while ago and I had posted on my Instagram a picture of each of them. So this one talks about pre-star teachers, which is apparently like learning teachers, teachers who aren't ready to go into the classroom, and then star teachers, teachers who are great, is what I'm assuming. I don't know for sure. I'm just taking it from the context of this piece here. So pre-star teachers demonstrate a personal orientation to learners that is based solely on having their own emotional needs met. By contrast, star teachers maintain a professional orientation to learners, remaining respectful and focused on student achievement regardless of student behaviors and attitudes. The former, so the personal orientation, pre-star teachers, is selfish, whereas the latter, star teachers, professional orientation, is selfless. So, one, yes, I mean, you're going into education to help children succeed, help young people succeed, help someone succeed. So yeah, there's a difference between, I get kind of what they're saying. It doesn't need to be said for people going in education, because how many go in to education and be like, I'm doing this for myself. I don't care if anybody learns, but it's for me. Like, it doesn't, I don't ever know a situation where that's happened. But to say that it's selfish to consider your own emotional needs, especially when teachers and the education system as a whole has been starved of support to the point of, I mean, I think we're past breaking point. Like, everything's cracked and crumbling around us. So we know as teachers, no one will prioritize our emotional well-being beyond ourselves, because nothing is set up to feel supportive. Now, there are districts and there's schools out there that have the administration and the people who are very supportive. But without them, and not every district and not every school, and I've been a part of those districts and schools, have that wildly beautiful support. So telling us that our emotional needs make us selfish and we shouldn't consider that, especially in the last few years and after everything that education and teachers have gone through and students have gone through, it's gaslighting, really. Is saying, oh, your emotional needs get to go out the window because you only have to, you do whatever you can for the kids, whatever that means to your own experience in your own life. You're there for the kids. You do whatever we tell you. So they've starved education and starved teachers of the support that they need, and then said, yeah, but like, don't be selfish, right? Like, don't think that your emotions matter. But here's the other piece about that. So staying respectful and focused on student achievement, regardless of student behaviors and attitudes. I take issue with this because I can teach all day. I am a very knowledgeable and experienced teacher. I can teach all day. That does not guarantee that the students will actively choose to learn. There have been days, what is it? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Absolutely. There have been days where I felt like a complete failure because all I was doing was managing behaviors, because there are so many, or at least enough to completely disrupt the class. No matter who I called for help, no matter who came or didn't come to give me that support, there have been more days than should ever be allowed where, especially even in like the last 4 months of my teaching experience, where I was just managing behaviors. And to be completely honest, most of my afternoons were managing behaviors and having the same discussion. Why? What am I doing that's not clicking for these kids to engage in learning? And I had my principal come in and observe my room at a very vulnerable time. Like, this is not my best because I'm not getting the learning. And behaviors and attitudes and the way the students come into the classroom, I can only control so much as one educator. As much as I would love to say, I reached every student and I got them to learn, because that's not always the case. And I'm going to share a story in my next video on how my goal shifted from one student. And it's done that a few times, where it's not about, like, we have to put the academic side as like a part 2, because we need to address the behavior concerns, the mental struggles that some of these students are having. And to say that, like, no matter what the behavior, you got to teach those kids. You can, but learning doesn't happen. And that's why colleges need to have like classroom management, behavior management, restorative practices, social emotional learning. Like, that needs to be a part of school, especially if it's not being explicitly taught anywhere else. So, okay, we're going to get off that one because that one gets me kind of heated. The last one says, and again, this is an education textbook for education majors. A study by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation found that many people become teachers because they want to give back to society. Other reasons include to make a difference, to work with children, and because they love their particular academic subject. These individuals understood that although they would not get rich in the profession, they would reap other valuable benefits. It's the commitment to public service that teachers fall back on when times get tough and they start questioning why they continue working in bureaucratic schools, spending their own money on school supplies, and receiving little recompense. I'd like to reword a little bit of this. It's the teacher's commitment to public service that society gaslights them when times get tough, rather than actually addressing their needs and show that they are respected and valued professionals. Why do teachers and students going into education have to accept that pay will not be good? Why is the system set up to support that belief, and that we have to take it as fact? Because that's outrageous. It's infuriating, because they're basically saying you're not going to get respect in any way, but you're going to do it for the kids. Doesn't that feel good? Like, we're not going to pay you a living wage in the city or wherever you live, or state or anything, but you know what? You're making a difference, and we thank you. That thanks is bull. That thanks means nothing if you're not going to change the system that's making the thanks necessary. We wouldn't need appreciation weeks or anything if you were giving us that appreciation and the resources and the support that we beg for, we ask for, we need, all for the students. I mean, it's not because we just love working 70 hours a week, or that we're struggling because we're not trying. Respect teachers. Like, that's all I gotta say. Respect teachers. And the fact that these are in these education books, that these young, impressionable, excited, optimistic, positive, like, I am jealous that I still don't have that viewpoint, because it was so beautiful and loving. But at the same time, thank goodness that I have learned so much and grown so much. And also took a stand for myself because teaching became a really, really intense crutch to my own eating disorder. I could not separate my eating disorder from my teaching because it was all about being selfless. It was all about thinking about everybody else rather than myself. And when I started putting myself as a priority, it changed everything. And so when I went back to the classroom this past year, not actively in a recovery program, not dealing with pregnancy and the wildness that journey is, but I just went as me, a person who loves teaching, who's also recovering from an eating disorder. I struggled because teaching was not set up to aid in my recovery, or I have not gotten far enough in my recovery to be able to teach and also stay recovery focused. And that's only my journey. Everybody has their own journey, but the one thing I kept saying after I knew I was leaving, and other staff members and people teachers I talked to knew I was leaving, when they talked about struggles, I said, hey, you're the only person that's going to put you first. You're the only person that is going to put you first. No one else is going to prioritize you. You've got to fight for yourself, or at least recognize that you will be the only one fighting for you, because that's how the system is. And it's not right and not okay. And we're seeing such negatives coming out because of it. And all of this going after teachers and the curriculum and what people can and cannot teach. The way that things are going is not looking good for the even short-term future of teachers and subsequently students. So, but I do have a good story to share next. It's heartwarming. It's very sweet. To try and lighten the mood because I got really heated up this week. Thanks for listening.